Time for the big conversation. An ordinary chat show with extraordinary people. The big conversation. Let's go.
It feels flimsy. It's probably one of the worst choices to interview rugby players on because we're all big people.
We're trying to improve your posture.
Yeah, well, not with this chair.
It's a rigid chair.
It's rigid, but it's got terrible angles for posture. If you want some advice on chairs, consult my Instagram. I'm making chairs at the minute. I would not make anything like this.
Well, if you make us a chair, we'll use it.
Right, I will, but it will weigh a lot.
Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
I noticed on your Twitter you describe yourself as essentially an old man in a young body.
Yes. Yeah,
Would
I should change that now.
Care to elaborate on that?
In rugby terms, I'm now an old man in an old body. I've always been a bit practical, a bit thoughtful, a bit methodical, and I often get dragged along as though I'm an old man, basically. I'm always giving like old man advice to people who are older than me, which is quite embarrassing, and I try and check myself. But
do people let you know that you're acting like an old man?
Yeah, routinely. Routinely, my wife is constantly on about me. I was 22, slippers, log burner, dog, rocking chair.
Just living life.
Just living life. Just enjoying all the things that life had to offer. Drinking wine and port and black coffee and reading a broadsheet newspaper and just essentially doing things that old men do. Not because...
Doing things that 20-year-old men
don't do. Yeah, but you get your kicks where you get your kicks. So.
Okay, so you joined Bath in 2011.
Yes, I did.
What were your reasons behind that move? Or was there anything in particular that attracted
I'll be honest
you
with
to
you,
come
the
here?
main thing was Gloucester didn't offer me a contract.
Okay.
So when Bristol got relegated, I had the option to move up to Gloucester or stay at Bristol. I had two healthy contract offers from both clubs. And I looked at the long-term prospects of the clubs. Gloucester had just been in the European final, had a really exciting squad. At the time, Alex Brown was their key second row, who was someone I'd kind of watched growing up and kind of idolised a little bit. So there was that kind of caveat. And I kind of looked at, I would either be starting every week for Bristol and travelling to National One clubs, or going up to Gloucester and playing Premiership and European top flight rugby, and whether I was going to play or not, I didn't see that circumstances were going to change overnight for Bristol. If they got promoted, there'd be relegation battles for years.
Yeah.
So I made the decision, moved up to Gloucester, got capped by England that year, and it seemed to be a very, very sensible move, and I very much enjoyed what I was doing. I liked the club, the coaches were good. Carl Hogg was a very, very good coach. He was a good mentor, a good person to work with. They had an incredibly young and exciting backline, people like Freddie Burns, Charlie Sharples, Johnny May, Henry Trinder, these guys who, like at the time, people were looking at the future of English rugby, and that was it, kind of thing. So it's quite an exciting place to be, and my 2-year contract came up, and unfortunately the owner, Tom Walkinshaw, he passed away. He'd been battling cancer for a long time, and he passed away kind of at the start of the season where I would be looking for a new contract, and they couldn't offer me anything. There was myself, Paul Dawn-Jones, Nicky Robinson, and there was a few of us in that boat. We would have happily stayed, and I'm quite happy to say that. I said at the time I would have happily stayed.
Is that somewhere you would have been looking to stay for like long term?
I think so. I didn't have ambitions to move around. I was quite sensible when I signed my first contract with Bristol as a uni student. I did all negotiate myself. I wanted to be quite clear. I wanted a fair deal for what I was worth, but I wasn't after trying to find as much money as possible around the place. And if I was going to do that, I'd have gone from club to club to club to club to club.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of set roots in place for a long time and achieve things. And Gloucester seemed a very, very good club, very well followed, great history, good stadium, great squad of players. I obviously signed under Dean Ryan, and he got sacked the year I arrived. So I never got to work with Dean, but at the time it was kind of an exciting coaching setup. So I would have happily stayed for the long haul there, but I say they weren't actually able to offer me a contract. They essentially, all they could do was renew the academy contract that I'd signed on, and by this point I'd capped for England. I was an England international, and they were offering me an academy contract. And I sat down with Brian Redpath at the time. He was like, I'm not expecting you to stay. I can't ask you to stay. I would love you to stay. Here's what we can offer you, but unfortunately they don't know who's in charge of the club. They've got no one who can say, here we can offer you this, here we can offer you that. So I had to start looking elsewhere, and I was born in Bristol, raised in the West Country, so I was keen to not travel too far afield, and I wanted a club that was stable and as ambitious, and I wanted to be winning things and contending for things. And Bath had a very similar vibe to Gloucester in that the kind of the proud heritage, great facilities, unbelievable stadium, lovely place to live. So that was kind of that was it really. I mean, there were other offers on the table, but Bath was pretty much the most attractive one for me.
So it was quite an easy decision for you.
Yeah, it was definitely an easy decision.
Was it difficult transitioning from Gloucester to Bath, or would you say it was a smooth thing?
I'll be honest, I think it was quite an enjoyable one. People talk about the animosity between the clubs and the fans and stuff like that, and there's definitely a healthy rivalry, but they're two very well supported clubs and supported by knowledgeable fans who kind of, whether or not they know the right things or not, they certainly know things.
And shout about it.
And that's fun. That's part of the enjoyment of rugby crowd. So that was an easy transition, and there was a bit of abuse, but I was open and honest, and I hadn't gone for financial reasons, or I was quite clear why it had happened publicly. So there was no real animosity towards me.
I mean, you left Gloucester on good terms as well.
Yeah,
which is
and I'm still very
thing.
good friends with a lot of the squad who were there when I left, and guys who were in the squad or coaching at the time who were still there and still speak to regularly, and it's always quite enjoyable playing against Gloucester because it was kind of it was the breakthrough club for me. Really. It was where I played, where things started to click as a player.
So when you got to Bath, what was it like running out on the Rec for the first time? There's a lot of people who speak about, it's such an amazing place.
It's a wonderful ground because it feels very authentic. I mean, where it's situated is the centrepiece of the town. They're a polite crowd in Bath, is probably the polite way to term it. They're not raucous, they're not loud, they're not like the Shed up at Gloucester, but they know what they're talking about. They get involved in the game. There's a really good spirit. Friday nights at the Rec is the big one. There's something about the city as it's lit up, and like the Abbey, the Roman baths and stuff. You kind of see some skyline shots of the city on a Friday night, and there's this great big lit up green light in the middle of the town, and it's the rugby club, and there's something really exciting driving down to a Friday night game. I think also because the city's obviously at the bottom of the valley. Most of the guys live on kind of the edges of Bath, so you kind of go down. There's like this funneling of energy down towards the Rec.
Being the centrepiece of it all, really.
And particularly at night, it kind of feels much more put together, and that's a really exciting element.
So this is your 6th year at Bath now. If you could pick out one moment, what would be the highlight of the 6 years for you? Or if you can, if not, maybe a whole season, which was
the year we got to the Premiership final was brilliant, and I say it's brilliant because of how much it meant to everyone. In the kind of we got through to the playoffs, got through, hammered Leicester in the semi, and then for the week leading up to the final. Out walking the dog in the morning, and people would stop and wind down the window and shout out to you, kind of thing. Everyone was pumped about it. Everyone was excited. And on the day of the final, I remember talking to my wife about it. She got the train up with the kids, to Twickenham, like trains rammed full of Bath fans, everyone in shirts, and you got to Twickenham and it was strange to think that there were two teams playing.
Yeah.
When you looked at the overwhelming support, it was blue, black and white.
That was amazing.
It just the whole lead up, the scenario, the day itself. The result was obviously devastating for all of us involved, but the whole thing was so special. That kind of culmination of all of the fans and the people around Bath, who so many of them have made that kind of journey up, and even the guys that didn't get tickets, they went up to be around it, to be in the pubs around Twickenham and stuff. It's a hugely different experience to international rugby at Twickenham, where there's a lot of barber jackets and people are fans of rugby, but they're not fans of you.
Fans,
like when your club gets to play in a final at Twickenham, everyone there cares who's in the team. They know who's injured, who's not available, why.
Yeah.
Whereas England fans are there and they support England. They kind of don't care who's playing. They're supporting England. So it's a very different vibe.
Are those moments where you spoke about the fans and the atmosphere and seeing a stadium full of blue, black and white, are those the moments that inspire you to keep working hard and to win games for the fans?
I think the biggest driver is the guys you play with. They're you get support from the fans, but you're kind of sheltered from that most of the time. You work with these guys in the gym, the other players, the coaches, the backroom staff, the physios, who work every day of the year and never get a day off. They're the guys that motivate me to get better and work harder and try and achieve something to kind of make it feel worthwhile for those guys. The kickback is the fans and that kind of vibe, but the main reason I get up and I go and I do it and I try and get better is because I personally want to win things, and I kind of want that validation that the whole thing is worthwhile, because it's just a quest for validation. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so you've played for England over 20 times now. What was it like getting your first cap? That must have been an extremely proud moment.
Yeah, it was against New Zealand at Twickenham, and it was. I can't remember anything about the game at all, not in the slightest.
All a blur.
Yeah, it was. The only thing I remember was afterwards in like the post-match function, my mum sat on Kevin Mulama's lap, and my mum is not a small woman, and she's also not shy, and she'd had a few glasses of wine, and she's a career state school teacher in Bristol, same as my dad, both of them, like 60 years teaching between them. They just kind of got on, and they're big fans of rugby, and they're in there and like dead excited, and I'm like trying to play it cool, and my mum was like, "That's Kevin Mulama." She just like didn't say anything, just walked off, went over. There's like a load of the All Blacks sat around the table, and she just like muscles in between them and sits down and is like chatting away. I was like, oh my god,
so embarrassing.
So embarrassing.
What's the atmosphere in terms of how does it differ from, say, you're playing a semi-final Premiership game for Bath? How does that differ from maybe playing an international match at Twickenham? The atmosphere. I mean, I know you said about the fans are slightly different in that sense.
Twickenham, I'll run you through the vibe at Twickenham. You arrive and the stadium is surrounded by fans. The bus is funneling people out the way to get access to the stadium. You get off the bus and there's like the roar from the people around in the south car park who are already liquored up to their eyeballs. You get into the change room and it's very quiet and kind of not sombre, but kind of tranquil. And you go out and you do your warm-up, and everyone's still outside drinking beer, so it's still quite quiet during your warm-up and stuff, and you kind of get this big cathedral, like when you walk into a big church, and it's very quiet.
Yeah.
And there's noise and people moving and stuff, but most of it's empty. There's just this kind of absence of anything. You get back into the change room, and when you come out for the anthems, the stadium's full now. And so you go from an empty stadium to a full stadium. And as you come out, the pyrotechnics go off, and the kind of the flames leave this like haze in the air, and then this wall of noise. And it's like the noise is distorting the air. You like everything is just wavy, and you don't realise that it's the heat from the flames. It's just like, wow, this is loud, kind of thing. But as soon as you're playing, as soon as the game's kicked off, it's not as loud. Whether you filter it out or whether it kind of goes quiet, because people are kind of watching the game, or they're doing their corporate hospitality thing, or whatever going on. The game is kind of takes place, and then at the end of the game there's a bit of applause. But the lead, for me, the international games, the lead up is where all the atmosphere is. Once the game's going, it's kind of
you're in your own
watching,
little.
But club games are different because it doesn't stop. They carry on. It's not like the game starts. They care so much more about every interaction, every big tackle, everything that goes on, and
it's more of a direct support for you as players.
It's much more personal. They, like I say, they understand what you're trying to achieve. They've watched you play rugby all season. They know what you're trying to do and the patterns and stuff. They know when it's going well. They can feel the momentum shift like you can, and they're a lot more audible, and that's the big difference. Is
you notice them
crowds,
a lot more being
there. They don't die off. You pause for a scrum, and then you just think, what's all this noise about, kind of thing, and that's the big difference, really.
So, I mean, you've got obviously a lot of memories playing for England and Bath. If you could only keep one memory from your entire career and all the others were discarded, what would it be?
It would be running out for the Premiership final.
In 2015,
Yeah, that'd be what it is.
Okay, so moving away from rugby for a minute.
Yeah.
We spoke to Toby Booth in our last interview a bit about music and what they listen to in the office.
Right.
So, what is the soundtrack of Dave Attwood?
Eesh.
And don't be embarrassed. Tell us, even if it's Taylor Swift.
To be honest, it's quite an eclectic. I kind of have got a lot of themes going in there. I like some heavy dance. I like some heavy metal. I like
heavy being the theme so far.
I like Mozart. I will quite happily listen to classical music driving into a game. I will.
Does it change? Do you listen to particular things before
Not really.
games?
I don't like because I find I get bored of music. If you run the same, every so often I'm going to make a match playlist and listening on my way to the game playlist, and like 2 weeks later I don't listen to it ever again because I've like
just
killed
sat there
it.
on your phone.
Yeah, I've just killed it off. So I'd rather not stick with one thing. I like some indie music. What was I listening? Clean Bandit. I was listening to Clean Bandit in the car 10 minutes ago on the way down here. I was listening to Mozart's House by Clean Bandit. After searching for Mozart,
I
was like, oh, I remember that song, and so I don't really have a genre that I'm really into.
If you could spend a day in the life of one of your teammates for Bath, who would it be and why?
A day in the life.
You think about all the things they might get up to, things they could do.
A day in the life.
I mean, if there's no one you'd rather be, then I guess say no one. Just for one day.
It would be interesting to I'd quite happily be Elliot Stook for a day and just eat terrible food and drink beer all day and just fully not care about my body or anything to do with it, and just eat and drink crap all day. That'd be great. I'll be honest, I'm not going to be nice about your chair.
If you could have personally witnessed any moment from rugby history, as in been there and watched it, what would it be?
Oh, good question.
Maybe something that you watched as a kid, or
everyone's going to say the Dropkick, isn't it? Aren't they? But I kind of feel like there's got to be a more that JPR try for the Barbarians. I'd have loved to. That would have been class, wouldn't it?
Be in the crowd. For
Yeah,
that.
almost. Yeah. Also, just like to be in that kind of a crowd in that kind of environment would have been class. But yeah, to kind of be able to say I was there, that would have been legit.
Maybe on a slightly lower tone, has there ever been a time in your career where you've maybe doubted that rugby was what you wanted to do, or you maybe fell out of rugby?
Every morning. Every morning you drive to work and you like. Don't get me wrong. I love what I do. I love the lifestyle it affords me. But people go to the gym to like feel good about themselves, to stay fit and healthy. But when you go to the gym and you go to work and you basically your job is to flog yourself, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's not something you go like sitting on the rower and throwing up. It's not fun. No one's doing that because they love it. No one's like, oh, I've just finished work, I'm going to go and make myself throw up on the rower. No one does that. So, and I'm like, God, wouldn't it just be like if you could just work in a nice little, like work in a place like this, a real cool coffee shop, and like be friendly to people all day, and like enjoy a bit of good weather, and like not have to like flog
There's
yourself.
not that much good weather, eh?
Well, no, it's limited, isn't it? But the days where it is, that's class, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like, every day there are elements of your day. The grass is always greener, isn't it? I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I do, and I'm fortunate that I'm lucky enough to be still doing it. But every day you ask yourself the question, like, God, is this right? Like, I mean, on a more somber note, stuff with concussion and the premature onset of mental health diseases and stuff like that is kind of a question that's rearing its head in rugby, and that's aside from all the physical issues and deformities and surgeries and neck problems and stuff that you kind of people that are paralysed and can't walk properly, and you look at guys that played 10, 15 years ago hobbling around and you're like, oh my God, is that what's in store for me? Like, there's definitely elements there where you seriously question, is this worth it? Am I like, is this something I want to sign up for?
Finally, what are your thoughts on your season personally and as a team? And maybe, you know, what are you looking forward to next season? What challenges have you set yourself?
Well, this year started out great on both accounts, really. For me personally, I was in really good shape. I was doing a load of extracurricular work that was paying real dividends for me. I got back involved with the England squad and Eddie and that kind of stuff. That was really good for me, and that kind of coincided with Bath season as well. We were playing really good rugby, doing really good things, and then kind of November time it kind of fell off that. I'd like to say that it's entirely because I got injured and was unavailable. That's how our season derailed as well, but I think that was more just a bit of coincidence than anything else, if I'm honest.
Maybe you were the key factor.
Yes, that's
they missed
exactly,
you so much.
That's exactly what I've been trying to say.
You just didn't want to say it, too modest.
But yeah, the season certainly didn't progress in that middle part. We had a real spate of injuries. Losing Henry Thomas was a huge one for us because he's a Premier tight head, and that kind of robbed us a lot of momentum. And the guys that kind of came in did a valiant job, but it took a while to get up to speed, and we lost a lot of momentum in that kind of in that shift. And throughout the squad, we had people away with England and injuries and stuff like that, which really didn't help us to kind of stem the tide. And we lost so much momentum that it was kind of an also ran at the end of the year. We like finished fifth, and we could have easily done worse than that. We were just kind of clinging on to the momentum at the start of the year, unfortunately. But the squad hasn't changed too much. There's a bit more continuity. Obviously, the coaches and stuff staying on next year, and that must
help
hopefully
things.
Definitely helps things. And I think that should be quite an exciting thing. We've got obviously Freddie coming in, Sam Underhill coming in. But aside from that, it's a relatively unchanged squad for us, so that's good news, because it always takes time when new guys get in to kind of bed down, and hopefully it will start in the same way that this last season did, and only this time it will carry on. If we can avoid some of the injuries that we had to deal with this year, then it should be a big year for us next year.
I think that's everything. Thanks
Cool.
for being here.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
No trouble at all.